Let's talk about options for Chattanooga, Tennessee homeowners in foreclosure. So you might be in a situation where you've missed a few payments, maybe you've received some letters from the bank, and you're not sure exactly what to do. Well, today I'm going to go over your options and the best strategy to get you out of your situation. So the first option for Chattanooga, Tennessee homeowners in foreclosure is what's called the loan modification. So this is a strategy where your lender changes the terms of your loan. So many times they will lower your interest rate, or they will extend your repayment period. Maybe they will give you 40 years to pay off your loan instead of 30 years. It's also not uncommon for your lender to add the missed payments to the end of the loan. Now, sometimes your lender might want you to make up some of the back payments, but many times they do add at least some of the back payments to the end of the loan to give you more time to pay everything off. Now, you have to show financial hardship with a loan modification. So you have to be able to convince the bank that you've gone through a situation involving some type of hardship, and that is the reason that you missed your payments. So it could be things like a job loss or a death in the family or an illness or just something that caused you to stop making your payments and to start to fall behind. Now, this is something you can actually do yourself. You can actually just contact your lender and initiate the process. So all you do is you call your lender and they will have you to fill out a package to send back to them, and they will process that and let you know what your options are, what they can do. So many times you will create what's called a hardship letter, and that's going to be a letter to your lender to explain your situation and to let them know what's going on. They will also usually ask you for tax returns or bank statements, pay stubs, just financial documents to prove that you are in financial distress. Now, you do have to start making your payments again. That is the one thing to consider with a loan modification. You had a glitch, you had something that caused you to fall behind, and now you're going to start making your payments again once that's over. So the bank will typically give you a trial period, usually for 3 months, to make sure that you can start making your payments again. And as long as you're able to start making your payments again after that trial period, then the bank will permanently modify your loan, and the new payment is what you will pay from now on. Okay, so the second option for Chattanooga, Tennessee homeowners in foreclosure is what's called the Forbearance Agreement. And the Forbearance Agreement is an agreement with your lender that allows for paused or reduced payments. And this basically gives the homeowner time to stabilize their finances. Similar to the loan modification, it's more of a temporary solution. Now, with the Forbearance Agreement, what's going to happen is the bank will add up the back payments that you owe and divide that up, and they will add those payments to your normal monthly payment. So after you go through the period of lower or no payments, then your payments will actually be higher for a certain period of time until you pay off what you owe. That's the difference. You're going to have higher payments with this strategy. And you have to start making your payments again, like with the loan modification. It's a temporary solution to avoid foreclosure. Okay, so the third option for Chattanooga, Tennessee homeowners in foreclosure is a listing agreement with a realtor. So that is where you decide to sell your home and avoid foreclosure. Now, the first two options with the loan modification and the forbearance agreement, those are two options that allow you to keep your home. With a listing agreement, obviously, you're going to sell your home. And the idea is you will use the equity in your home to make up the back payments and to get out of foreclosure. So once you find a buyer and you go to the closing, then you will use the equity in your home, the money that you get back, to pay off your lender and make up all the back payments. And the idea is when you work with a realtor and you're in foreclosure, the idea is you want to get maximum exposure in the shortest amount of time to sell your property quickly, because you don't really have a lot of time in this scenario. And many times what your realtor can do is they can contact the bank and get a postponement of the foreclosure sale. So they can buy you a little bit of time, but you still have to work fast and get the property sold quickly to avoid the foreclosure date, because what the bank will do is they might postpone it for a month or two to give you some time to sell it. But then what's going to happen is they're going to set another sell date if it's not sold, and it'll go through the process and the foreclosure process and go to the auction. So you want to make sure that you are able to sell the property quickly when you're in foreclosure and you list it with a realtor. Now, another thing to consider when you're listing it with a realtor and you're in foreclosure is you want to look at what type of buyer do you need to sell this property to, and your realtor should be aware of this. So really, should you focus on marketing the property to investor buyers or retail buyers, or in some situations, both? So if you really have to sell your property very quickly and your sell date is in 30 days or less, then more than likely you're going to need to sell your property to an investor, because an investor usually has cash. They come in and buy the house quick, buy it as is, and they can get you out of your situation quickly. If you have more time, maybe you've missed one or two payments, it's not, the sell date is maybe several months out, then maybe you could focus on selling it to a retail buyer. If the home is in good shape, you have more time, then it would make more sense to look for more of the retail or owner-occupant buyer, to where you can get more money and sell your home and get out of the situation. However, you still have to focus on selling it quickly, because when you sell it to a retail buyer, then you're going to have the loan process that takes time when the buyer gets the loan. So it will be a longer process. So you want to be aware of that as well. But if you have more time and your house is in good shape, you could still focus on selling it to a retail buyer. Okay, so the next option for Chattanooga, Tennessee homeowners in foreclosure is what's called a short sale. Okay, so this is where your lender accepts less than what is owed as payment in full. And this allows a homeowner to sell their home if they have no equity. So if you just list your house and try to sell it with a realtor and there's no short sale involved, then that assumes you have equity in your property to be able to make up the back payments. And even pay your realtor. Okay, but if you have no equity, then you have to do what's called a short sale. Okay, so that does work in combination with a listing agreement. So when your realtor looks at the amount you owe and then what you can sell the property for, then they will decide, okay, can we just put it on the market and sell it just without doing a short sale, or do we need to do a short sale? What do we need to do here? So if you do need to do a short sale, if you have no equity and your realtor says, hey, look, the only way we can sell this is if we negotiate with the bank to get a discount, then you're going to have to do or fill out what's called a short sale package and send that to the bank. Now, that is what your realtor, as long as they're experienced in this process, that is something that they will do for you. Okay, so the short sale package, it typically involves a hardship letter, again, similar to the loan modification. It'll involve a hardship letter, financial documents like tax returns or bank statements or pay stubs, and just more evidence that you have financial difficulty. You want to send that to the bank so that way they can verify that you're in financial distress. Now, whenever I do short sales, I go above and beyond that. And I will send additional information to the bank to support the fact that my seller or my client can't make their payments and that they are in a difficult situation. So for example, one of the things I typically do is I will take pictures of the house, and whenever I see something where there is repairs that are needed, then I will send those pictures to the bank and let them know that, hey, this house needs a new roof, or it needs a new kitchen, or there's some kind of problem that needs to be fixed. Which that lets the bank know that, hey, if they take this property back at the foreclosure sale and then wait even months back down the road from that time, from the foreclosure auction, it lets them know that they're going to be waiting a long time for their money and that they are going to get less than what they think they're going to get. So it's better to take the short sale now than to wait 6, 8, 10 months or a year or more to get their money. So I will send pictures of disrepair. I also will typically, many times, send a contractor estimate to let them know that, okay, if you take this house back, this is the list of repairs you're going to have to do. I also will typically send comparables of other similar properties. So properties that are in the same condition, and also properties that are in a similar situation. So a property that needs repair, if your house needs repair, then I'll send comparables of properties that need repair. And also properties that are in situations like another short sale, or a property that's already in foreclosure, or something similar to that. So that way it lets the bank know that, hey, this is what to expect if they take the property back. So do they want to wait months down the road or over a year to get their money, or do they want to take the short sale now and be done with the situation? Another thing to consider with a short sale, another advantage, is the potential to avoid what's called a deficiency judgment. Okay, so that is where the bank can potentially come back to you as the homeowner and sue you for the difference of what the house sold for and what you owed. Okay, so for example, if you owed $300,000 and the house only sold for $250,000, then it's possible after the house sells that the bank could come back and try to sue you for the difference. Okay, now this can happen all through the process. It can happen with a short sale. It can happen after the foreclosure auction. It can happen even if the bank takes it back and resells it as an REO or just as a foreclosed property. So at any point in that process, this can actually happen. So what we do with our short sales is we will ask the bank to waive the deficiency judgment, so that way you don't owe more money once you sell this thing. Now, it doesn't always happen 100%, but we do always request that, and many times we do get the bank to agree to that in writing. Okay, so another option for Chattanooga, Tennessee homeowners in foreclosure is a cash offer. And that's really essentially the fastest and easiest way to sell your house, is getting a cash offer from an investor. Because when an investor buys your house, typically they're buying it as is. They are, you don't have to do any repair. They're usually going to close within 2 to 3 weeks or whenever the title work is done. And it's just a very quick and easy process. Now, this can be a cash offer if you already have it listed with a realtor. It can be a cash offer through your realtor if your realtor works with investors like I do. It could be that your realtor brings a cash buyer, or it could be an investor that contacts you directly. Maybe they sent you a piece of mail, or maybe they just looked up your number and they gave you a call, or you saw some of their advertising and you called them. And if that's the case, you'll be working with that investor directly, and you can also that'll help to save on some of the real estate commission. So it could be either directly from the investor or through your realtor if you already have it listed. It's also a cash offer. Also, another advantage is it has a much lower chance of falling through as opposed to an offer from a retail buyer getting a loan from a bank. And that's because there's no financing involved. You don't have to wait on appraisals and for the bank to do all their processing and decide if they're going to give the loan or not, sometimes at the last minute. So when you're working with an investor, they typically have their own cash. They may partner with another investor that has cash. And it just eliminates that whole process of waiting on financing to get approved. So it has a much lower chance of falling through. Now, I will say that most of the time, investors will still typically do an inspection. So I buy property myself. I'm an investor. I'm also a realtor. So I do both. And whenever I go and buy a property, I always do an inspection. Even though I understand repairs, I understand renovations, I still will always have somebody go back behind me and look and make sure I didn't miss anything. Typically a home inspector, sometimes a contractor, sometimes both, but I always do inspections. And also the properties that I sell as a realtor to other investors, they typically always do inspections. So you should expect if you're selling to an investor directly, you should expect them to typically at least do an inspection. It shouldn't take that long, but most investors will do an inspection to make sure that they understand everything that they're going to have to repair. So other than that, it's a very straightforward, simple, easy process. Another thing to consider is there are very minimal to no showings if you're just selling to a cash buyer or an investor. And the reason being is because you're not dealing with retail buyers that have to go and live in the home and they have to make sure everything is perfect and all of that. Investors, if they go look at a house, they typically know what they want. They know already by looking at the property online if they're interested or not. And then typically it's just all about them making the numbers work. So you typically have minimal or no showings. So minimal showings, if you're working with a realtor, they'll probably show several of their investor clients. If you're working directly with an investor and they make you a good offer that makes sense for you, well, I mean, that could be just the one and only showing that you do, and you're out of your situation. The one thing to consider, the one caveat is you have to have equity in your house when you're selling to a cash buyer, because the idea is the investor has to make money on the deal. Yes, they're going to help you out of your situation. Yes, it is a very easy and simple way to sell your house, but they have to make money on the deal. So they have to look at the repairs that need to be done, all their holding costs. They have to consider what is the house going to sell for, many times in, 3 to 6 months by the time they finish the repairs and put it on the market. They have to take all those things in consideration. So there has to be equity in your house in order for the investor to make a profit. So that's the one thing to consider when looking at cash offers. Okay, so the next option for Chattanooga, Tennessee homeowners in foreclosure is what's called a subject to. Now, this is a strategy where you sell your home while keeping the existing financing in place. So the deed is transferred to the new buyer, but the loan stays in your name. And you may be thinking, well, why would you want to just keep the loan in your name? Why would you want someone else to pay your mortgage like that? Is that risky? Can you do that? And it is something to consider, but if you are in a situation where you're behind in payments and you've got a foreclosure sell date set in the near future, or maybe you're just really close to that foreclosure date and you're going to lose your house, well, many times it does make sense to let someone else, an investor that's financially strong, to take over your payments for a specific period of time until they refinance the property or resell the property. So that's the idea of that strategy is the investor will take over your payments for a specific period of time until they resell the property or refinance. So what that's going to do, it's going to allow you to sell the property very quickly. So you can sell it really just as quick as with a cash offer, because with a subject to transaction, you're literally you're signing paperwork, you're signing your deed over to the investor. You sign a contract, then you go to the closing table and you sign your deed and the closing documents, and that's really all you have to do. So really, in terms of speed, it's just really a matter of when does the title company have the title work done, and once that's complete, you can go to the closing. So it's something that you can close as quickly as a cash transaction. So it's a fast closing. It also allows you to bring the loan current, and that's really one of the big things here, because if you've already missed payments, it's already hurt your credit. Then if you go to foreclosure, that is going to be a tremendous negative impact on your credit. So when you use this strategy, you're going to be able to start rebuilding your credit immediately. So at the closing, the investor will bring money to the table to make up your back payments, and then they will continue to make monthly payments on your loan, which will help to rebuild your credit, and you will be out of the foreclosure situation. Now, this can be more of a complex strategy, so you want to make sure that you do use solid legal disclosures. Now, if you're working with an investor directly to do this, most of the time they have their own forms, which is fine. But if you have any questions about this or you don't understand it, then it is a good idea to talk to a real estate attorney that can explain the situation and how that works for you. Okay, so another option for Chattanooga, Tennessee homeowners in foreclosure is Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So first of all, I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. So definitely consult with your attorney if you think this is an option for you. However, since I've worked with a lot of people in financial distress and in foreclosure, I've seen other homeowners use Chapter 13 bankruptcy as a way to get out of their situation. So essentially, Chapter 13 bankruptcy is the reorganization of debt into a more affordable payment plan. And so it just makes things more affordable. It puts everything on hold, and it allows you time to figure everything out and to start making payments on all of your debts. Now, one thing to consider in terms of your foreclosure sell date or your property going to the foreclosure auction is when you file Chapter 13 bankruptcy, it puts everything on hold. So it postpones the foreclosure sell date. And you can typically file Chapter 13 bankruptcy many times just right before the foreclosure sell date, and it puts everything on hold. So that could just, if anything, give you time to breathe and figure out, what exactly are you going to do? Now, Chapter 13 bankruptcy, it allows you to keep your home because bankruptcy protects assets. So that essentially is what you're doing here is you're putting everything on hold, reorganizing your debt, and it allows you to keep your home if you get on the payment plan and stay on it and go all the way through it. Now, you can also sell your home in Chapter 13 bankruptcy if it's approved by the court. So you might be in a situation where, you file bankruptcy and that puts everything on hold. You go through the process of setting up the payment plan, but then you realize, what, I'll be better off if I sell this thing. So, maybe you just decide you want to sell it. You talk to your realtor, or you have an investor that you've been talking to, and you decide to sell it. Well, that is something you can also do if the house is in bankruptcy. You can sell it if the court approves of the sale and allows you to pull your house out of bankruptcy. Now, the one main thing you want to consider is, obviously with bankruptcy, it has a very negative impact on your credit, pretty similar to a foreclosure. So if you do this, it can put things on hold, help you to reorganize things, get things back on track, but it's going to have a very negative impact on your credit. So you want to take that in consideration. All right, the final option for Chattanooga, Tennessee homeowners in foreclosure is what's called the deed in lieu. So a deed in lieu is a situation where you basically just deed your house back to the bank. You give it back to the bank. So it avoids foreclosure, but it can have the same negative impact as a foreclosure. And sometimes the bank actually records it as a foreclosure on your credit. If they don't record it as a foreclosure, then they basically record it just as, record it that your loan was not actually paid off, which is still very negative. So either way, it can affect your credit for up to 7 years, just like a foreclosure. So you want to take that in consideration. You could also be liable for deficiency judgment or even have tax consequences when you just deed your house back to the bank. So typically, this is not the best option, because if you look at all the other options that we've talked about, the deed in lieu really is, to me, not really the best option at all, because there's other much better options that you can choose, and that will help you out of your situation that are better than the deed in lieu of foreclosure. Now, if your bank agrees to waive the deficiency judgment, or maybe they say that, hey, they'll give you some cash to move or something like that, and they put all that in writing, then it could be a better option, but still not really the best option, because we have others that are much better. Okay, so those are the options for Chattanooga, Tennessee homeowners in foreclosure. If you have any questions about this process, then reach out to us. Our information is below. You can also go to our website at sellnowhomesolutions.com, fill out an information form, and we will reach out to you and talk about what we can do to help. Thanks.